Welcome to another live weekly Wednesday in Nashville. We have a special treat today. Not only do we, as always, have Matt and Marty Burnett Group Real Estate, but today we have our special guest. He's been with us before, attorney at law, Juris Doctorate, Todd Scholler, and we're going to talk about everything related to title. Do not take how you take title for granted. We're going to discuss that today. Welcome, everybody.
Hey, how are you?
Good.
Hi, Amy. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you. Well, Todd, you are the expert in this category. And Marty brought this to my attention a couple of weeks ago. We were discussing title, and people buy a home, all different, husband, wife, singles, individuals, families, many people. Taking title is always the, what's the best thing to do?
Yeah, it's amazing to me that in a lot of cases it comes up literally at the table.
Right.
And a lot of people don't think about it until then. And I always try to make a point to talk about it because I've seen a couple of situations, and some of these are sort of technical, but the gist of it is, and the real issue here is, in most cases, who's going to control the property, but what happens if somebody passes away? And how you take title is so important when it comes to that. I've seen a few situations where things went completely a different direction than what I'm sure the person who passed away thought they were going to go. And it was because of some glitch in the way that it was titled. And so, yeah, go ahead.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. I think it's something that we don't talk about. And if you could give us just a quick rundown, like just for people that are tuning in that maybe like, title, what does that mean? Because you and I do this every day. And so we know what taking title to the property means. Give everybody just a quick rundown of what taking title means and what the different options are for people. I think they think you buy the house you sign on, it's yours. I don't think a lot of people understand there are different ways you can own property.
Absolutely. And really in Tennessee, there are three main categories that you hear about: joint tenants, tenants in common, and something called tenants by the entireties. Well, and an example, really, joint tenancy and tenancy in common, for my purposes, are really effectively the same. I'll come back to that. But the other one, tenancy by the entireties, if Matt and Marty go out together and they buy a piece of property and it's titled to Matt Burnett and Marty Burnett, they take title as tenants by the entireties. And what that does is it creates, by operation of law, a survivorship interest that where something happened to Marty, the property by operation of law transfers immediately to Matt, irrespective of whether Marty had a will or something that directed the property elsewhere. So the title controls it, and vice versa. If something were to happen to Matt, it would transfer to Marty. So tenancy by the entireties is presumed. Anytime somebody who's married takes title together, it's presumed that there is this survivorship right, even if it doesn't say Matt and Marty, husband and wife, or Matt and wife Marty. It doesn't even have to label them per se as husband and wife, but the fact that they are married when they take title means that there's a presumed survivorship interest that will pass.
So like business partners or just friends could do that, correct?
Well, see, and that's the thing, let's say Amy and I decide to buy property together. Amy's married, I'm married, we're not married to each other. We can take title, though, more or less the same way. We could take title as tenants in common, which just means if Amy and I bought it together, she would own a 50% interest, I would own a 50% interest. However, if we add some magic language to that, tenants in common with right of survivorship, that means that if something happens to me, my interest would pass to Amy or vice versa. So you can get the same effect, even though Amy and I are not married. We could have the same effect with that survivorship right if we intend it, but only if we state it expressly.
And let me complicate the situation just a little bit more.
Sure.
Let's say Matt and I, let's say I pass away and Matt remarries. She's got kids, he's got kids. They go to buy a property as a husband and wife, but they don't want to buy it.
Pushing me out.
Yeah. No, you're pushing myself out.
It's about to go another direction.
And let's say in that situation, they don't want the intention to be that if Matt buys dies, that this crazy, ridiculous, stupid woman gets the whole property, or this crazy, ridiculous, stupid woman dies and Matt gets it all, but they want it to go to their heirs. What does that look like?
This crazy,
Good
ridiculous
question.
woman that you don't even know who she
Yes.
is, and she
And
doesn't
she's
really
watching
exist.
right now. She better watch out. I'm going to haunt you.
That's right. That's right. Well, so, and that comes up too. You get blended family situations. So in that case, what they might want to do, there are options, obviously. You can do trust. So Matt and this other horrible person that he marries after his first angelic wife passes.
And her kids.
And her hellion children. They could establish a trust that, you know, cared for each other during their lives, but then thereafter it's divided out between her horrible kids and your wonderful kids. That's one option. You could take title as married people can choose not to take title as tenants by the entirety. So in other words, Matt and let's call her Broomhilda. Matt and Broomhilda.
Exactly the name I was thinking of. That's hilarious.
Probably not.
Could take title as, they could choose to take title as tenants in common with no right of survivorship. And so that if something were to happen to Matt, then Matt's heirs at law, or according to his estate planning, would control that 50% interest. So yes, that's a great example. The blended family situations complicates
Can we laugh? But people need to know about this. I mean, they really do.
It's real life.
Because
It's
once
real
the
life in
person's
many
dead,
situations.
it's too late, you know?
Well, yes, I had a situation, I'll make it short and sweet, but basically we'll call them Bob and Judy. Bob and Judy bought property together before they were married, which don't ever do that, but that's anyway. No, they bought property together before they were married, and it was titled to them as tenants in common. Well, they then got married, right? And they stay married for 20 years. And then all of a sudden, Bob tragically passes away. Well, they never changed it from tenants in common to survivorship rights. The fact that they got married doesn't automatically change that. So they're still tenants in common. Well, when Bob passed away, Judy or Mary, whatever her name was, I can't remember now, she's inconsequential and made up. She needs to sell the house. Well, all of a sudden she has to go, oh gosh, wait a second, I only own 50%. The other 50% passed to his heirs. Now, he was married before and he had children from a prior marriage. So all of a sudden she realizes that she doesn't own the house. And now she gets to deal with his children from a prior marriage who didn't really like her very much. So that's the kind
Sorry,
of thing.
Broomhilda.
Right.
I mean, a $75 quitclaim deed would have fixed everything, you know, as would
or when they bought it, they could have done bought it as tenants in common and add their survivorship and not had to do anything different, correct?
Exactly. But they didn't either. And so as
let's talk about people buying properties together, like oh gosh, my brain's gone dead. Like the multi-generational properties. Like me and Matt are going to move in with my mom and dad. Don't have a heart attack. I mean, and I do have sisters, and mom and dad died, and how it is important to take title correctly, because if we did the deal where we moved in together, then, you know, I love my sisters, but they're not getting my house. So what does that look like? Or if they, you know, there's a portion of it that was mom and dad, you know what I mean? Like these things can get sticky.
Well, and in some cases you have to do a little more than just control it by title. In some cases you would want to set up some sort of entity that deals with the ownership and what happens if, because you can get a lot more detailed. And
right, but the ownership does help if you have that done correctly from the beginning.
Put it this way, you can definitely screw up your estate planning with improper titling of property. So if you need the property to go to the percentages as to their heirs at law and so forth, but you inadvertently title it, you know, incorrectly, that's going to carry the day. So I've seen plenty of people think that their property was going to go one direction, but the way they left it titled sent it a different one.
Yeah, and this is an awkward thing to talk about, but it's so important for people to know how important this is, and to know what their intentions with the property are. We had a situation where an unmarried lady bought a house and mom signed on, but there was a very serious boyfriend in play. So I know Todd had a conversation with them about, you know, what the intentions were there. If you do get married, what happens there? Like,
I just wade right in usually, because it's like, you know, if I'm sitting there with a boy, a man and a woman, or whatever, or two men, two women, whatever, and they're taking property together, I usually ask them, look, what, not trying to be nosy, but what's your intent here? You
Mhm.
know, do you intend to get married, or that? Because I need to know that now, because I can do things differently right then that will make a huge difference. Um, you know, one
So
of the
this is the question that should be asked during the closing, like before you get to the closing, and like during the process, correct? By the title company or attorney that's working.
It can save a
Yeah.
lot of confusion and
Mhm.
arguments and headaches later down the road.
For sure.
Yeah,
Can it be fixed after the fact?
I was going to say, and that's the other thing. Sometimes what we do is we set it on the side. You know, we'll be at the table and we're talking about these issues, and they're like, I just don't know, you know, because it's complicated. Maybe they're not married yet. They want to, and I'm like, look, we can leave it the way it is. You can always change it after the fact, and you can do what's called a
Mhm.
quit claim deed, QUIT claim deed, and you can change the way something's titled. And usually it's not an issue to do that. Obviously, if you have a loan and there's a lender involved, you have to be sensitive to that. You don't want to be, you know, violating some due on sale provision or something. But just to change the ownership, the way it's held, is usually not a problem after the fact. I will say this: the one call I get that I cringe a little bit about is I will get a call from somebody saying, you know, I'm 60 years old and I want to add my son to my property, right? I just want to add, because I'm getting older and I just want to add them to my property. I cringe a little bit then, because the next call a few weeks later will be, well, I want to take him off, right? And I have to explain to them that you can't take them off. Only he can take himself off. Once you put him on there, he has an interest. And people, I think, feel like they can just add somebody and then take them off. Well, you can't
That's a
do
very good point.
The
I like
cancel
him today,
culture.
but next week he's made me mad, so I want him off.
It's the
Well,
cancel culture.
But
it's,
I'll tell you, I've got a situation right now where it was an only child, and when I sold the mom the house, and she put the son on from the get go, and it has made it. She's, God love her soul. She passed, and it's heart wrenching. But I'm
yeah,
going to tell you, her prepping helped her son along in the way of not having as much red tape. Because I mean,
yeah,
those estate things can be a nightmare,
yeah.
regardless how many people's involved. But if you can plan ahead, it's really saved him some time and allowing him to grieve and not have to worry about a lot of this stuff. So she was
And
very smart in what she did.
always encourage people to talk about estate planning and not just think of, you know, oh, we can control with deed how things pass, because things can get so complicated and it can make a massive difference. So yes, I always encourage estate planning. I don't do that sort of thing. Um, but yeah, just be slow to, and I also have to tell these people, look, if you add somebody to your title, anything that happens to them happens to your title. It could attach to your property. So when you're adding son who might have a bit of a drinking problem or whatever, you know,
Gambling.
gambling, whatever, that could impact you. And if son decides he doesn't want to come off that deed, there's not much you can do. You put him on there.
Gotcha. So if there's like a judgment against him, it'll go
Yeah.
on that as well, is what you're saying.
That's exactly right.
Wow.
So
Yeah, so it can get complicated. Lots to think about for sure.
yep, yep.
This is why we always say trust the professionals. Call Matt and Marty. They will get you in touch with Todd. Reach Todd directly and say, I need help. Don't take these matters into your own hands, is basically what we say week after week after week, right?
Yes, and
Yeah.
Todd, your phone's going to ring off the wall. People going, oh my gosh, am I titled right?
Titled right.
I don't really like my kids anymore. Get them off the house.
Yeah, get them off. You take them off.
Here's the site. You can reach Todd directly. You can always reach Matt and Marty. Great information today. Everybody go view your titles. Make sure it's set up correctly. Matt and Marty are on location today, preparing another great field shoot for some upcoming shows you do not want to miss. And Todd, thank you so much. We know that you're always busy and make the time for us, and we really greatly appreciate it. Anybody there in that greater Nashville area, please reach out to Todd. He will answer your questions. Thank you both so much.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.